Right. Hello again, everyone. Also to our audience on YouTube, I'm sure you're catching the live streaming of this, and also welcome everyone who's on the Zoom meeting now. So I think it's 2:30 p.m. in India. So it's a good time to start. Let me start by welcoming everyone, our moderator, assimilator, Dr. Bharadwaj, Dr. Balaji, and our esteemed panel that we have here today. And also thanks for coming to the final session and the big piece of the puzzle of IMRC 2022, which is on maritime HR and training. So let me just start by introducing our moderator and assimilator, although they don't need any introduction. But today we have Dr. Suresh Bharadwaj, who's the resident director and principal of Masa Maritime Academy, who will be the moderator and who will be helping us assimilate this session later today. And also later on is Dr. Raju Balaji, director of IMU Chennai. So welcome everyone. And Dr. Bharadwaj, over to you now. Thank you.
Thanks, Yogyata. Thank you very much. And thanks to IMRC for this wonderful 3 days, winding up for the penultimate session now. And welcome to all the participants to this session on training and HR. And my pleasure to introduce this elite panel to you, ladies and gentlemen. We have with us Captain Bilal Ahmed, who is joining all the way from Singapore. Captain Bilal is the current chairman of IMAC. He is also the managing director of Western Shipping, which is based out of Singapore. 22 years of seagoing experience, another 2 decades in shore management from Singapore. His contributions to the industry is recognized globally. And he continues his involvement in various industry discussions. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
We have also with us today Captain Sankalp Shukla. And Captain Shukla is the current chairman of OSMA. He has been right through with Bernard Schulte, BSM, started as a cadet in 1995. And he came ashore with BSM in 2007. And in shore, he has risen all the ranks. From fleet personnel manager, marine superintendent, crew manager, director, and of course now the managing director of BSM Crew Services in India.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
In between, he took time off to do his MSc in shipping and logistics supply chain management from Plymouth University. And he's on various industry roles in the court of IMU, NUSI, ITF Trust. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Captain Basim. He is the chairman of MASA, and he is also the Secretary General of CMMI, and he is the Managing Director of MSC Crewing Services. He is heading the India operation, the complete manning and training of the seafarers for cargo ships and cruise ships. Very interestingly, gentlemen, ladies, apart from his profession, he has a great passion for greenery. And at various forums, we have seen him distributing plants and samplings, encouraging plantation of trees, and mostly advocating neem plantation. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Next, we have with us Dr. Captain Ashutosh Apankar. He is the principal of the very famous T.S. Rahman, and he engages very widely in mentoring and guiding research scholars in the nautical science field. Welcome, sir. And topping the list is none other but all the way from Hong Kong, Captain Pradeep Chawla. And he is, as we know, is the celebrated icon, Group Managing Director of QEHS in training with Anglo Univan Group. And he is overlooking the training and development of 28,000 sailing staff, 1,700 shore managers, over 650 ships. And he is an invited member to many consultative committees in Hong Kong itself. He is the chairman of Global Met, and he is a member of the Intertanko team on human element. That's interesting. Human element today is a buzzword. And of course, he's the member of Intertanko, OCIMF steering group for human element as well. Wonderful, wonderful. So he's the chairman of the Standard Club Safety and Local Advisory Committee of Asia, and on the expert group of BIMCO Key Performance Indicators Program. Absolutely awesome. Welcome, sir. Very nice to have you.
I think I would prefer to be remembered as your cadet from Deshbandhu together, and the good memories from there. Thank you.
Very humbling. Thank you so much, sir. All right, gentlemen. So let us begin. And I would like to first straight away go to Captain Bilal, Captain Shukla, and of course, Captain Chawla. Gentlemen, digitalization and decarbonization. Now, this has become the buzzword in shipping. I think it is going to stay there for the next decade, and rightfully so, rightfully so. But the point is, it is a paradigm shift which is happening in the industry. Ever-changing environment, new technologies. Even when we talk of decarbonization, the kind of different pathways which are being evolved, we really don't know what is it going to be at the end of the day. So much of change, volatility. The industry is responding to the shift themselves. Where do we in maritime education and training live up to this? And how do we do that? Sir, Captain Bilal.
Captain Bardwas, thank you so much. I think I do have to start. Thank you for inviting me here, and very honored to be in a panel which is so distinguished. You know, we know each other for many years, but it cannot be a better panel than this. Thank you so much. And I'm really honored to be here. I think the chapter or the subject that we introduced, it is difficult, and it is going to stay with us for many years to come. What we need to look at probably is those of us who have been in the industry for decades, we know shipping is always one industry that keeps changing. Regulatory wise, I mean, when we were cadets, it was the collision regulations that suddenly changed a lot of things. And over the years, regulations keeps coming and industry have to change. But what is happening today in last few years and then years to come is a major change. I think it's a revolutionary change, and industry has never been put under such pressure in history. So many regulations, so many things coming at the same time. Many of us, we do not actually, we are lost how to handle so many things at one stage. Now, decarbonization, for the panel here, probably we'll be talking about on practical levels, how we deal with this. We all have observed the IMRC for last 2 days and how this particular topic has been discussed previously. It is, there are groups of very knowledgeable people working how this can be easily put into the industry. And those of us who are always raising our hands say, it is so difficult. How do we run the ships at such short period of time? So this is something that I think we all acknowledge is not easy. And digitalization, obviously, we cannot go without. Any new building ships that we are all taking over, it is not the one that even resembles 5 years ago. So it's quite different, quite difficult. Now, for those of us who are actually on the ground running the ships, the decarbonization thing is a challenge, but probably handled by the engine makers, the governments, and all the industry bodies that represents. But on the digitalization side, it is already there on the ships that we are receiving today. And the challenges for us, and again, a lot of these changes comes with the training issues with regard to preparing our crew, and then availability of those training that our crew can be ready. I think some of these will come probably later as we progress with our discussion. But I think for the ship operators and ship owners, the biggest challenge is to get the crew ready to run those ships. And a lot of mistakes, a lot of unnecessary things happening on the ship is not because the crew are not able to do the job, but crew are not able to handle equipment which are supposedly automated but difficult to repair when in the middle of sea. So two issues that you have just introduced, they are difficult, and when you say that it will stay with us for 10, 20 years, yes, and while we are moving forward, things will change even further. So it is something that industry is coming to terms with, and that's where I would like to stop now, and I will probably wait for Captain Sanklap to add on to what I have saying. But these are two very relevant challenges that we definitely need to keep our eyes on. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Captain Bilal, thank you so much. Very, very well highlighted. I mean, it is very, very challenging for the whole industry as such.
Yeah.
But Captain Shukla, please, yes, what are your views?
Thank you. Firstly, it's a pleasure that I've been invited by IMRC for especially this panel with such esteemed speakers. We had all met together a long time back, pre-COVID days, but nice to be talking together. I think what has been raised here is a very, very valid point, and it couldn't have been better put across the way Captain Bilal has put it across, that as far as technology goes, there is an evolution of new technologies that are being seen on board ships, and it is changing very quickly. And we've never seen this kind of change as explained in the previous years, the way it is so dynamic now. Now, technology change per se, I think is being addressed well by the industry, well by the MTI, that is the Maritime Training Institutions. We are having simulator-based training, which is the best way of actually as close to practical training as possible for seafarers to be comfortable with the new technology that is being placed on board ships. I'm also glad that recently a committee has been formed here in India that is working with the Director General of Shipping for cloud-based simulation, which would be the easiest way to, to train our seafarers, whether it is remotely or even practical training when it comes to simulator with physical presence. So the technology part is being addressed by the simulators, and we are working on that. Yes, we need to be looking at what the future is and be ready proactively rather than reactively, what I would say. Now, as far as the fuels go, I mean, going green is the norm of the day, whether it be cars nowadays, you're seeing electric vehicles coming out. Shipping is also going through a huge change. And of recently, we've seen the IGF code, vessels covered under the IGF code are now the order of the day, and they are being delivered left, right, and center across the world. And going ahead, I mean, recently we've seen that ships that were covered under the IGF code, there was a circular that came out which referred to ships which are covered with LNG as fuel. But that was not good enough, because now you're having ships coming out with methanol, ethanol as fuel. And also work is happening against simulators being developed for the training requirements with regards to STCW, with regards to this particular training. But again, coming here, I would support what Captain Bilal said, is let us not wait for a regulation to come out, then see how to work towards it. We need to see in the next 10, 15 years, what are the new kind of engines that are going to come out, and start working with that well in advance, rather than firefight at the end when things are already out. There is a lot of scope in this kind of understanding what future needs are, and accordingly developing, getting the required simulators. Also, an important part that we need to discuss is train the trainers. Because with this new technology coming out, the trainers themselves have to be trained. A lot of the trainers will have to have even physical hands-on training when it comes to, especially new types of engines, covering different types of fuels or electric engines and things like that. Now, that is also a focus area that we need to achieve. So, I mean, that's what my take so far is. I'm sure other people would have more input to give with regards to this. Thank you, Captain Bharat.
Yeah, no, I think some two very important points. You mentioned that the proactiveness with which the industry is now collaborating with the DG shipping and making this new rules coming out. Like, for example, when we said we had this IGF code only for the LNG, but it needs to be tweaked for ethanol. I mean, these changes are dynamic. So if you have this wonderful relationship going on where we are dynamically changing the requirements with the keeping pace with the industry, that is one important area. The second area, of course, like you said, is the faculty development, because you will not find youngsters who have got this experience on board to be coming over and imparting trainings. That there's a big gap there, and for the system to technology to respond and develop that into a simulation, yes. So all this has to be very dynamic and go hand in hand. Very challenging area. I would like to take the views of Captain Chawla, sir. You are coming have a global view on this. What are your views?
Thank you, Suresh. I think I echo what Bilal and Sankalp have said. They've covered most of the points. I think the technology will always remain ahead of regulations, and the MET industry will always remain behind technology. The thing is that the countries who are early innovators as crew supply nations of putting into place the right training systems will benefit in supplying more crew to the world. And I think India is poised quite well for this, because I think what I see now is that we have an agile administration in terms of revising syllabus, etc. I see that IMU is very active now, which is nice to see. And on a global level, I think we are ahead of most of the other crew supply nations. So this is certainly going to be an opportunity for India. And on the digitalization, the number of new startups that are there in India and the large number of people who may not be a startup out of India, but who are supporting the startups from other parts of the world. I mean, a whole lot of these maritime digitalization companies have their programmers all sitting in Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Mumbai, and Pune, right? So we have the knowledge base now in India. We are an academically oriented society in India. All the mothers still keep saying, study, 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 don't go out and waste your time in playing. So we should be doing quite well on it. On the dual fuel side, and the decarbonization side, I think there the regulation and the society expectations is pushing rather than the industry in reality being ahead of the demand. The demand is already there. We have those targets for 2030, 2050, etc. So here we are driven quite a lot by regulations, and the innovation that is happening will be quite varied, because I don't think the world has so far found the magic wand to decarbonize the planet, right? I mean, if you see the last COP26, pretty much not as expected, below expectation of the people who are green activists, right? And this fight between progress of mankind in terms of what we like to call progress, monetary and growth and development and poverty elimination, etc., it clashes with the aims of being more green or decarbonizing the planet. And so I'm expecting that that kind of thing will remain, kind of vacillating between a lot of things. And it's a good thing that IMO has committed a lot of these targets already. So, but I think as MET, we need to be seeing what can we do about it. And to give an example about the pace of how it is changing, we have 500 out of our 650 ships that are fully digitalized now. We partnered with Wärtsilä, and there are many, many products in the market, 35, 40 companies at the moment. So my seafarers already are being trained for the last 2 years in how to be utilizing all this new software that is coming. Luckily, as Sankalp had mentioned, The digitalization part goes okay because the softwares themselves are more and more intuitive. I think we need to start, Steve Jobs and Apple kind of changed the entire way softwares are meant to be written for people to be people centric. And a lot of these companies are coming up with very people centric. Typically a seafarer for this new kind of product that we have, I would say about 8 to 12 hours, he gets the hang of what is required because they are so intuitive and easy to use. So I'm not too worried about it. My bigger concern is on the dual fuels, because we have dry cargo vessel officers who are now going to handle cryogenic hazards, right, without ever having been exposed to anything like that. And I would say that's going to be a tougher challenge. A lot of safety is being kind of put into the design of these systems, no doubt about it. We have a couple of ships now where we are doing LNG bunkering, and it is a challenge. It is certainly going to be at least 2 or 3 years before we have like a decent understanding of the dangers and to avoid it. And so far from the reports from the industry, what we see is that each of these new fuel ones comes up with new problems. So everybody used to bunkering oil, right? But the minute they come on to LPG and LNG and ethanol and all the other cocktails, then the new dangers that are there, I mean, simple things like gaskets giving way, right? Design, the build material coming out from the yard. Everybody is kind of learning as we go along, right? I mean, the experience of an LNG cargo ship are being moved to LNG bunkering, but the people handling the whole kind of experience level is different. So I am happy to see that the revision of the syllabus in India is going well. And my request would be for my friends in MET industry in India to please move quickly on it, lay down the regulations, prove to the ship owners of the world that we have a strong MET base in India, and we should be quite able to get a lot of attention because everybody is looking for better qualified officers for all these modern ships, right? So let's make use of that advantage and increase the market share then by being ahead of the curve. And I think it's a good start that I see in India. Thank you.
Oh, those are very, very encouraging words. And when you are out, you have a fantastic view of India and very, very encouraging words for India, sir. Thank you so much. Like you said, digitization, yes, that's our forte. But big, more challenge, of course, is with decarbonization. The industry doesn't really know what it is. But like you said, yes, scrubbers. Big problem with scrubbers themselves. You need to have one extra manpower there to man the scrubbers itself. So as things evolve, maybe the ship itself is a good place to learn. And I would think that if the STCW is strengthened a little bit more with the onboard structure training program, that will also go a very, very long way. But then, yes, as Met coming now to Captain Basin and Captain Apankar, Captain Apankar is straight from the Met, and Captain Apankar, you will agree that, when we talk of Met typical education and training, many a times you get so embroiled in the scientific knowledge of academics that the Met drifts down. It is known as an academic drift, and you tend to get away from the skills and the professions which is demanded, like that of a maritime industry. So this Met, how does it evolve to provide this training and retraining that is relevant to the practice? What are your experiences, Captain Apankar? I believe you are investing into manned models and things like that.
Yes, sir. First of all, good evening, everyone. And sir, thank you for inviting me to this conference. As I told you, sir, and correctly said by Captain Chawla, sir, that technology is ahead and training is always lagging behind. And we need to catch up. If we are in pace with the technology, definitely then India will provide very good officers. And right now we are providing, and we are we are at such a place where, we adapt very fast to the technology. So that's the advantage we have in India. Of course, our administration is now changing things very fast. I'm associated with IMU, and I can see many seafarers, and of course you are also there. Many seafarers are coming down for research work, and they are actually doing very good research. One of the candidate was doing using the blockchain technology in tracing the fuel right from source to the end user, which will be, which will change things. But coming down to the basic maritime education, yes, I can say that we are changing, but that pace needs to increase. And I think pandemic, people can say we all suffered, but it actually changed the whole aspect of digitization. The trainers actually upgraded themselves. They had to, and I have seen across the Maritime Training Institute that the content and the delivery has really gone up. I can very well, I can with authority, I can say that the delivery has gone up. Only what we need to do is that the trainers need to be trained properly with the latest regulations, the simulators coming in. And as you rightly mentioned, we are trying to bridge this gap where we are trained on simulator, but that simulator is simulating the condition. So we thought that we go one step ahead and we go to the shipman model course, which is run in UK and in even in Poland, where the actual ship is is into 1:20 scale, and you will actually feel that, have the experience. So on simulator it may happen, yes, we are serious about doing it, but sometimes the person tends to get little that this is a simulator, but when you're doing it, actually it will not happen like that, because you are right over there with the trainer, and you have to understand, you have to put your theory into practice, and then you see what is happening when he goes back onto the ship, or when the shipping company is ready to give him the command of a vessel. That is, I'm saying, from chief officer to master, he is giving such a big asset into his hands, and he cannot have a trial and error system over there. So yes, the academic drift is happening, but somewhere the Indian, I'll be very open about the administration, the shipping companies. They all have taken so much of proactive steps. Here I have on the panel itself, we have a shipping company where even after having the COC, even after doing all the training, they are sending their officers for a junior officers course, where they are redoing the STCW practicals, only practicals. Theory they already know. They are sending the senior officers for doing the advanced courses and the additional courses. So the seriousness about training is very much there with the shipping companies. They are investing money. After we have a COC, we could never see that we can come back for courses, but they're coming back for the same courses, though the STW says after 5 years, they are doing it after 2.5 years. So the seriousness is there, and I'm sure, as Captain Chawla said, we are here to capture the market, and we will, but we just need to increase our pace so that we are in line with the technology, and we are at the best. That's the view from my side.
Right. Coming to Captain Bhasin, sir, what are your views with your experiences?
Thank you, Captain Bhardwaj. First of all, let me thank IMRC organizers for inviting us here in this esteemed panelist. Now, before I say something, I would like to start saying, because this is the session, Captain Bhardwaj, if I understand correctly, you are asking a direct question to me and Pankar about the gap between the COC and company analysis and the needs, right? So let me start by saying the role played by the seafarers. You all have mentioned, previous speakers have also mentioned, you also mentioned, in the last 2 years, the role played by the seafarers, especially during the pandemic, in running the ship professionally, all the time, by keeping the supply chains on. That has been really come to the front. It has been really recognized now, when the things were in trouble. We have been doing this for ages, but nobody recognized us. Now also, we are come in little bit in the eyes of the world. And my hats off to all the seafarers around the world. Coming back to your question, sir, gap between the COC and the company needs.
Yes.
So it has a varied dimensions. Basic generic gap for all vessels, And then there's a gap for a specific vessel needs. This is where Captain Pankaj also mentioned that most of the companies have taken very much proactive this thing. They have gone out of the way because they have to run their ship safely. They have to ensure their seafarers are trained well to run their own assets. This is where the things come on. And as an association, MASA, along with the Sankalp is there, POSMA, INSA, CMI, IMEI, played a major role in reaching out to the administration. As you all know, with the support of the DG Shipping has always been forthcoming on regular intervals as the conditions are evolving of the pandemic. Initially in India, 2 years back, we started 3-year training courses, giving 18 months of extension to the people so that they can sail on the ship. Last week, all these associations I named have been talking to the DG Shipping and saying 18 months are over. But the practice have not started yet. Or they started for a month, Omicron came, everything is shut. So those guys are suffering. It gave a result. 2 days back, you all know, DG has given a new circular. He has given extension of further 12 months with certain conditions to fulfill. So I will reach out to all of you to please study that, do that, understand the circular. It's been a very good effort because of the combined association reaching out to DG. Now, there are other gaps also, which are recognized towards skill development, especially towards soft skill, like communication, online training, methodology, mentoring, where inputs were given by the companies. Also, digitalization mentioned by many speakers before me. MASA started excellent soft skill program for students which are undergoing their PC training. Captain Bhadwa, you are a very key personnel there. And recently, to fill up the gap, MASA organized a special 3-day ME engine course. There was a demand. We had a 5-day regular course. There was a demand to enhance the value added. So they started 3 days ME engine course. Even now, we are working towards LNG vessel crew training. Soon we'll be having it starting in Mumbai. But most importantly, recently we had a meeting again with the named association that I said, where we are working with the NUSI to get the offshore ratings into the main vessels, like AB, Motorman. A course has been designed by the NUSI, which is going to be there in the industry for all the members to use it. I will add something more, which Sankam briefly mentioned. Committee was made under the DG Shipping for the simulator. I think that Tuesday or today is Wednesday. The meeting, first meeting has taken place, sir, where there is a representation from MASA, POSMA, CMI, IMEI, and what they are looking at. If the practicals are not handling, don't stop the people. Allow the simulators to work on the cloud. So the seafarers can actually get the COC in time and go on the ships. So these are the recent gaps we found, and we have taken action on it. So I'm actually giving you the pinpoint what has actually been done. One more point I will like to add on the decarbonization. Various forums are having their discussion, high-level discussion, company level, association level. But there are a lot of work to be done in this direction. Lot of work. Our company people have, I'm sure all of you have already gone for their LNG training on another LNG dual fuel vessels, because as per DG circular, they have to do 1 month of training on board plus 1 bunkering. So they are already doing that. Our vessel from the yard is coming in April, and then May, then July. We have 11 vessels which are coming out from the yard, all dual fuel. But before, not only my vessel, MASA and other associations recognize this, they are already working on this. 1 month from now, you will be surprised the demand of LNG courses. Let me remind everybody, each and every person who steps on board LNG dual vessel, sir, need to have his basic LNG course. Even if he's a rating, he's a cadet or anyone. Plus, all the engineers, plus the master, need to have his advanced LNG course COP. So it's a big demand, sir, big demand. I will rest here.
Thank you. Thank you. I think excellently put, and brings to light the kind of humans work which these associations like MASMA and FOSMA are doing to make this happen for the Indian maritime industry. Super. All right, gentlemen, let's shift to a little bit on the HR now, and I would like to ask all of you in the same order. This pandemic, ongoing pandemic, this has put in a lot of challenges on the HR. And while, like Captain Wasim said, it has highlighted the indispensable role of the maritime industry, with the seafarer being at the heart of shipping, acknowledged. But this maritime shipping is operating in a very complex, global, if I say, kind of a socio-technical environment, where we have some stringent regulations like these COVID protocols. You know, we've just heard what Hong Kong is having or what different other countries are having. Now, these are reactions. Today it is COVID. Tomorrow it will be a reaction to some other political or economical or socially variable conditions. So how is this HR of a global industry like this getting challenged all the more time, and how are we responding? Captain Bilal, sir.
Thank you, Captain Bardwaj. It is very important, but before I speak on this, maybe I just like to go back what we were discussing before. I think it is very important, and especially what Captain Wasim and Captain Apankar was talking about, how the gap is being addressed. And you know, for myself and probably also for Captain Chawla, we are a little bit away from where the people that are being trained and developed to work on the ships. Now, if you look at today's industry, we have our customers to satisfy, right? They don't want any risk. Everybody talks about risk assessment, risk management. So I can suggest a 10-year experienced master who has been working on a VLCC to say, can I put him on a product tanker of Panamax size? The owners will say, no, he cannot do the job. Now, those are really unrealistic expectations. Many of the people who owns the ships or basically risk managers, they will say, no, we want specific people for specific ships. I think that was being discussed. Now, what I was giving an example is a very broad-based, but what has been happening is companies, almost all management companies, had to do much more extra. And when you talk of doing extra, always involves funds, money. And again, I think companies like Anglo Eastern managing hundreds of ships will know a $5,000 difference in training in one ship can result in millions of dollars of total expenses in order to develop the pool. No? So a lot of difficulties. So when we talk of STCW needed requirement, that I know it is being done, but how do we say how much less the companies can do and the people can be more readily available on a specific skill set? And industry need to work on those. This is not being done. We know in the tanker industry, officer metrics, even if you wish to bring a guy who has been on the previous ship, he needs to comply with so many other experience requirements, which has nothing to do with the guy's ability to run a ship. So challenges are there, but I think we need to keep working on those. So it is very complex. So when the managers from Hong Kong calls the office in Mumbai and say, we don't want this, and the guy says, but what is the problem? Well, there are problems that the Hong Kong office have to reply to somebody else. So I think we all need to appreciate the difficulties. And I will stop there on that. That part is probably will never resolve, but we must do our best to bring some balance to that. With regard to COVID, I think we can discuss whole day and night and weeks and months on what has been happening. And I just came out from a meeting with MPA in Singapore just an hour ago and talking about COVID and the rule changes and all these things. But every time we talk about rules, the companies that are actually not only just the crew department, now the operation department gets involved because of all the changes, which is allowed, not allowed, allowed by the charterers, not allowed by the local government, allowed by the local government, not allowed by the charterers. Many things can happen. End of the day, what I have seen, that other than the company that manages the crew, everybody forgets the welfare of the crew. Now, we all talk about mental health, or a crew who is on board for 10, 11, 12 months is not allowed to step ashore any country. Forget about everything else. So we are talking about his mental health. But my experience, and we have an office in the Philippines, we know as much as the seafarer is suffering, his whole family is suffering. And many forums, this discussion doesn't come up, that his wife is suffering mentally, his children are suffering mentally, his parents are suffering mentally, and everybody, the whole family. So one seafarer may cause about a whole family to suffer mentally. And all because somebody in some office is not allowing the crew change for whatever reasons. And if you multiply hundreds of thousands of seafarers, and if you multiply that by an average family of 5 to 6 person, and imagine that number, it's a huge number. It's a huge number. And I think that discussion has never got any tractions. Only recently people have started to acknowledge the problem, to be very honest. But even now in our company that we can see, when we request the charters for allowing the crew change, they don't listen. When we request the authorities in Korea or China, they don't listen. So the problem continues, and hopefully it will go away. But I think in near term, it is not going to go away. Then finally, it comes back to especially the countries that are supplying the officers and the crew in India and the Philippines and in Ukraine. It is the person who is handling the crew to keep them happy, to keep them as much as possible, to just manage the problem. But I think it has become little bit too much. Now there is another parallel things going on with regard to how do we train the people on board to remain mentally healthy, right? So physical exercise and all the trainings. How much training are we actually going to push to these people and say, you need to be trained to be not mentally sick? Well, sir, you need to send me home, then I cannot be mentally sick. Now again, today we are talking a part of a debate, but the reality is quite bad. Reality is quite serious. And I think we all are very much aware of young people who are so used to, we spoke about digitalization, and they're connecting to their home, to their friends and girlfriends, boyfriends, and people are pushed to the limit they're taking their lives. So the matter is extremely serious, and something I think I have to say, during the whole 2-year crisis, one of the countries that has led properly is India, with all those charter flights that Fosma Masa and everyone has done. And without that, would have been really impossible. So I think it is time for us to once again recognize that effort, that people involved into that was really great. That is the way you solve a problem, not by talking about and ask someone else to do something else. So with regard to training, I'm all for it. With regard to support that the crew needs, but I think there must be a much better solution where we can have the mental illness issue addressed.
Thank you. Very, very well put, Captain Bilal, sir. Mental health has been extenuated after this COVID, much level. Thank you. Captain Shukla, sir, yes, we've heard some very good words from Captain Bilal on MASMA, POSMA efforts.
Yes, thank you, Captain Bilal, for your kind words. Now, let me start my discussion by, firstly, appreciating, recognizing, and thanking our beloved seafarers who in the past 2 years despite the COVID crisis, have actually been COVID warriors. They have been COVID warriors. They've kept the world economy going. They've kept essentials coming across the globe. Majority, I mean, today vaccinations are available all across the globe. Again, there is some part of our seafarers to play. And it is very unfortunate that during those very difficult circumstances, countries had closed borders, and a forgotten race was our seafarers. And I appreciate our administration, which took this up very strongly with the center. They supported what FOSMA, MASA, INSA were trying to do. And yes, we managed the charter flights, and yes, we did start getting our seafarers back. That was a small part of the appreciation that we could show our seafarers and as an industry here in India. Now, coming to what has COVID done? COVID has done seafarers getting delayed in relief. One thing that Captain Bilal did bring up, that no shore leaves, no contact with the outside world, digital contact with the family. Person supposed to sign off in 4, 5, 6 months gets off the ship after 12 months because restrictions there. Their families are awaiting. There are crises going on in their families. Over and above that, we cannot forget that a lot of countries, including a lot of companies, had these requirements of isolation in quarantine facilities before joining ships. So these poor people were put in a small room for 15 days. At times, ships were delayed. I know of cases where people have been in that small room for more than a month. And what kind of, what kind of mental health would that person have who's clammed up in a room for a month, then goes on a ship? Okay, he's interacting with 20 people, the same 20 people on a daily basis, but he's completely cut off with the outside world. So what Captain Bilal did bring up, mental health, yeah, but mental health is not this, like, very aptly put. It may sound funny, it is not, but see, there is a limit of training, and you shouldn't overstep that limit, because it is not adding any value. Like, yeah, I'm calling you to, we are having a training session on mental health, and you need to be on the ship, and you need to do this to keep yourself mentally healthy. You do yoga 10 times a day, and he's going to turn around, I'll be absolutely fine, send me home. Which luckily today, things have eased up. We are able to do crew changes more in a better way. What we saw in FOSMA is that, there is hard skill training. We do people who are joining ships with ME engines. We are doing ME simulator courses. People joining ships with RT-Flex engines. We are doing RT-Flex. Now, the latest flavor of the day, IGF code. We are doing the IGF code training. We are doing large ship handling courses. We are doing STS operations, all kinds of things on simulators. But what about the soft skills? And then we realized, we took an analysis as to how many accidents have taken place, who are the people who are involved in those accidents. And we realized the people involved in those accidents are people who are at the level of ratings. Are they trained? Are they not trained? Yes, they are trained. They know what checklist needs to be followed, tick, go. But why are these accidents still taking place? Then we realized it is an issue of soft skills. Soft skills, we talk about behavior-based safety. The focus group should be the ratings, because these are the people who are actually doing the physical work. And it is a human tendency, if something can be done in 15 minutes, why go the entire half an hour? And that is where behavior-based safety came in. FOSMA tied up with ISF and 3Cubes, where we designed a 3-day training program free of cost to all our member lines, where they could send their ratings for a comprehensive training in soft skills, where we explained, where we brought up case studies as to where a person purely based on his behavior and thinking caused the accident. He did not have any issues with his hard skills. Hard skill training was there, but he lacked in the understanding of what behavior-based safety is. That was followed by a detailed workshop on mental health. So these are things that have been identified, and even more so now during the COVID era, where training is happening online, And again, overkill on training. Trust me, I know. I know companies are having seafarers doing multiple courses while on leave, sitting at home in front of a computer. And especially when it comes to soft skill training, it is not something that can be done over a computer. As long as that interaction is not there, you cannot do soft skill training. By telling somebody on a computer that, this is what behavior-based safety is, no. These are workshops. These are interaction. It is getting to know how another person thinks, how another person feels. Soft skill trainings, of course, hard skill training, important. Soft skill training, also important. They all go hand in glove. There's no point having a strength in one area and not having the strength in the other area. You have to work together to achieve this. Thank you.
Very well put, sir. I think the point which you mentioned was, yes, soft skills from a perspective of people who are already at sea, grappling through these issues of COVID and whatever. But look at a scenario of a pre-sea cadet who's supposed to be 3 years on campus, regimented training, is now for last 2 years behind a screen on the camera, and then straight away from that laptop, he finds himself going on board, and there is such a big gap. So there is also a big need on getting these people mentally fit to be inducted into the profession right from your behind the screen, the blanked off screen of your laptop, to straight away on board the ship. So this is another challenging which has come in the COVID times, really, of course. But going ahead to Captain Pradeep Chawla, sir. Yes, you have your problems will be multifold with so many ships and.
Yes. No, frankly, I don't think the problems are any different with us than with any other company, big or small. We all deal with humans and we all make mistakes as humans. So the human factor, so-called human element, stays. And it's no different in an office. It's no different in politics. It's no different between countries, right? So when, on a lighter tone, if people ask me the definition of a company, I don't give them the ISM definition. My first description of a company is a bunch of overinflated egos that need to be handled. So this is reality, that as long as we are humans, we are going to have diversity of opinion and we will have issues with them. Since I also wear the safety hat in Anglo-Eastern for the last 30 something years, I would like to differ a little bit with some of the things that are said. I think the ABs in general, or the ratings in general, I think is lesser of a problem area, because especially Indian ratings, they're very obedient. They follow whatever is told to them. I think where our focus with respect to soft skills needs to be, and I may not be popular for saying this, but specifically in the roles of leadership, supervision. Because I think if we remember our old days, we will have memories of Master A and Master B and Master C, and how the whole atmosphere of a ship changed when Master A went home and Master B came, right? I mean, Suresh, we can talk about Deshbandhu, the people we sailed with, right? So it's no different now. The management team on the ship pretty much defines the safety culture of a ship. And there, I think on the soft skills side, we need to really be focused a lot more. One of the areas where I think India as a whole is probably needs to do more is in diversity training. One of the reasons for that is that a lot of the companies that are having Indian crew are more or less top to bottom on a ship is all Indians, right? So when they need to handle a multinational crew or different nationalities, then there are some differences in the way those ships are handled versus how a full Indian manned vessel is handled. So, and for me, the master and chief engineer pretty much dictate. So I have this model which I call my onion layer model. So right at the core is the seafarer. Around him is the master, chief engineer, chief officer, second engineer, and the bosun. Those five together pretty much define how things are run on the ship. Around them come the next layer of people, which is the vessel manager, the crewing manager, operation manager, the people who are in day-to-day touch with the ship. Then I like to call the next circle around it, the next concentric circle, as cyberspace. It's white space. Outside that sit people like us in the office, and we do a lot of blah, blah, right? And we always say the same thing: safety first, do this, don't do this, train, all the other good things of life, right? But that has to filter through this white space around the ship, right? I mean, if you remember in the old days, there was a saying that for 361 days in a year, I'm the Lord and Master of the ship. 4 days in a year, someone from land comes and bothers me, but the rest of the 361 days, I run the ship, right? So with communications improving, that day-to-day, let's say, guidance or interference, depends on how you look at it, whether as a seafarer or as an office person, right? As an office person, we will say we are guiding them. And some of the seafarers, especially the more senior ones, would say, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I've been actually running the ship for 35 years while you've been sitting in the office. So we know what we are doing, you know. So quite often there is this mismatch that happens in terms of the industry creating more and more regulations, more and more trainings, more and more, let's say, closer. And it's only going to get more like that, that there will be more and more interface between people ashore, and soon navigation will also be in a state that VTS will decide, you know, what speed you're going to be doing, which lane you're going to be doing, something like airline control. That's coming. I mean, the sea lane project in Europe that is there, and all the other advancements that are happening. So I am fully in agreement with the previous speakers that soft skills is a really, really big challenge. We will need to have a lot of new skills going forward in this world of digitalization. Just imagine the number of miscommunications that happen on a daily basis between a husband and a wife. Mm-hmm. And right now you multiply that with 21 people on a ship who are all fed up because nobody's relieving them in time and because they can't go ashore and there is COVID and whatever else. Imagine how many times, and my mathematics is very poor, so I can't do this permutation and combination thing, but maybe I can see Jagmeet smiling. He knows my math is really bad. So I can see him saying that, yeah, it's a large number, right? So I would feel that we need to focus on the management teams in terms of their skills to be able to manage the diversity and the changes that are happening. The pace of change of everything on a ship is going to be 3 times faster than what it happened in the last 2 decades. I mean, if you take technology, the equipment on the ship was more or less steady, right? I mean, then we introduced, like on the nautical side, after the invention of the radar, then the next big one was the GPS, and the next big one was the egg disc. But that's over a period of 30 years. But if you see the progress that has happened in the last 5 years with, you know, I just heard someone talking about carbon capture on a ship today. We're talking about different fuels, you know. So as a chief engineer, I may be on a fuel oil ship now and on an LNG dual fueled vessel next. And by the 4th ship, I might be on ethanol, you know, still sailing on the same ship types, container ships, for example, right? Mm-hmm. So they need to be changing pace a lot. So what is the common factor with that needs to be handled? Managing the pace of change, constantly evolving our management styles, our ability to lead people through this massive change that is happening. So that should be where we as a MET industry need to be focused on saying, okay, let's empower our people. Let's give them the tools that they need for managing this big change. So we'll write the manuals and we'll put them on board and we'll put them through an IGF course. But the reality on the ship is going to be a lot more difficult than what can be covered in a 5-day course. And that's where we need to help our senior people in getting the skills for being great leaders. Thank you.
Fantastic, sir. Fantastic. Very well put. And yes, we will develop a little bit more on this a little bit later. Let me finish off with Captain Apankar, sir. From your perspective, how do you see this?
Yes, sir. Sir, I agree with Captain Sankalp when he said something about, that soft skill cannot happen in on online mode. I mean, we all have seen now, and especially the maritime training institutes, they were suddenly thrown into online mode. They gathered some, momentum, and then we were all on the course to do online, and they have delivered their best, I can say. Given the conditions, because the boys were coming in, going out, coming in, going out. And practical aspect, again, DG Shipping allowed only 50% of the boys to come in, do the practicals, go back. But somewhere we are missing something which I wanted to highlight, which came through Captain Chawla sir's talk also, and even Captain Sankalp Shukla also addressed it, that human element, the touch, the faculty and the student touch is, we felt that it is missing. And he's coming only here for practicals, doing his soft skill is secondary, but even the hard skills, he's with us for some time and then he goes back, and then he has completed his training and he's ready to take his certificate. What we observed, and this is our practical thing which I'm sharing, sir, that when the shipping companies came for interview, we are an institute where more than 50-60 companies come here. Some pick up maximum boys, some are taking 2-3. You will be surprised, sir, and this term I think came from the normal industry, and now it has come to shipping also. The normal industry, I'll explain. If you can see in various newspaper ads for engineers, the big companies like Tata's and all that, they are giving the advertisement and saying, we need so and so mechanical engineer, but not the COVID batches. It is in the bracket. They are saying we need before COVID or someone, or they will come afterwards. And I was reading through the newspaper, I saw this and I said, pandemic was not their fault, but somewhere that industry has immediately recognized that the batches which happen online are either not up to the mark or their experience is not such. And of course, they are the end users. They will define the market, what it is. And when the shipping company started coming to training institutes, I spoke to many principals also. Same thing. Their first choice was, even if the boys before pandemic, we want to see him first. And those who have completed, because there are certain courses like IMU DNS, which has completed the full course in pandemic online, only came in campus for the practical training, and that faculty, student, or what he had to experience in a maritime training institute, getting up in the morning, doing drills, parade, and all those things which is required, necessary, was missing. And as sir said very rightly, there was Captain A, Captain B, the leadership aspect, but these boys now have missed the whole crux of the training for what they are prepared. They are online and they think this is how the training is. Because when they came, when the first batch was purely pandemic, came in campus, the rules were told to them, everything was told to them, but 3-4 months they spent only in online. So they thought morning 8:30 we start, but they were woken up at 5 o'clock for PT parade with social distancing, and they were taken for a shock, so now again we are going back to normal, and I think DG will allow more number, full strength will come in, but we need to bridge the gap of this human element, which sir, all seniors said very rightly, that the soft skill has to start from pre-C level if we want a better officer coming. Because now when we were selling or when you were selling, the things were different. Now the technology is changing so fast. They know what is happening at their home. What vegetable is being cooked in the afternoon. They know in the morning through WhatsApp and all that. So that communication is very fast. They are missing, and the current generation is a social generation. They cannot take this separation. And I think STCW and the shipping companies also are putting a lot of emphasis on this training, even at pre-C level. But this should be compulsory and dealt with a real human aspect where, we understand 4 months staying in isolation, working under pressure. So this should be developed from pre-C level itself, so that, the companies don't face those problems when they're at third, second mate or master's level. So
thank you.
That's what I wanted to share.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Coming to Captain Bazin, sir, some of your last words.
Captain Bhardwaj, when you are the last person on the same question, most of the things have already been spoken. I prepared things on the crew welfare and the mental health issues. Bilal already spoke about it. Anyway, the other things also. But I will add something, because I'm also thankful to Pankar when he mentioned about the pre-C level soft skill. Captain Pankar, I mentioned in my first question that the MASA has developed under the hands of Captain Bhardwaj in association with IMU. We are doing soft skill training of the pre-C students. And it's not only for the IMU students, a lot of companies are coming to us and giving this training to the pre-C cadet, both from the deck as well as from the engine side. So it's a very relevant part, sir. And some of the companies, big ones, they have their own module. So companies are already doing it at their level. But they have realized this critical issue of mentoring and leadership. Captain Chawla also spoke in the end about the mentoring, Captain A, B, and the leadership. But there's a question in Captain Bhardwaj, you spoke about like covert protocol that reacts to the economic, political, and socially viable conditions. So how is the HR process, in your view, grappling with the reality?
Yes.
Since everything has been said, so I want to say only one thing.
Yes.
Vaccination. Because that's a very important part of the day-to-day need for the seafarers when you talk about HR. And that is where the lacuna has come. Recently, we recognize that as a gap. Again, all our associations together, POSMA, INSA, CMI, IMEI, we have recognized this. And I will tell you what is the issue, real issue. We all have taken 2 doses of vaccination. I'm glad to say, maximum of the seafarers have taken their vaccination. The people who took in India their second doses, now they have, unless you are 60 plus with morbid, you cannot take your precautionary dose. That is the gap. We have been approaching, and we have been told, hopefully in the month of March, announcement will come where the seafarers 18 plus or maybe 25 plus will be allowed to take their third dose. If you have taken Covishield, you have to take only Covishield as the third dose. If you have taken Covaxin, you have to take only Covaxin. I'm just mentioning 2 samples. So this is, we have to work in progress, wait and watch. Now, what about the people who have taken their vaccination outside India? Single dose Johnson & Johnson, 2 doses of Pfizer, and various others. Those seafarers are not even registered in our COVID portal. There's a big gap. However, I would like to state here, WHO has said any vaccination which is approved by WHO, if you have taken it, you can take the second or the third dose of any other vaccine as long as it is approved by WHO. So this is for the companies and the people here to look into that. Like we have gone to our seafarers and told them, given them that link, explain them that if you want, you can go and take the, register yourself in the COVID and start taking the doses. Remember, lots of ports are telling if you don't have a booster dose, you can't go. Lots of our seafarers have almost completed 7 to 8 months for the second dose. This is going to be a bottleneck very, very soon. But the work is in process. So I just want to tell you, because you mentioned COVID protocols. Rest everything has been sent, sir. One more thing I want to state. No matter what protocols we make, companies take lots of efforts for the safety of the seafarers and the ships. But it is the person himself. He also has responsibility. He needs to follow those protocols. I can say, do this, but the person himself, whether it's a seafarer, it's a superintendent, whether us visiting ship or a technician visiting ship or a port authorities, all have to follow that. Then only it is successful. We have a case where the people are doing 2-3 COVID tests in India. They depart, they arrive in South Korea. Again, COVID test on arrival, negative. As per protocol, they go to South Korea hotel. They stay for 10 days. In the hotel during quarantine, they are becoming positive. Sankalp is here, his ships, a postman ship, master ship, we all suffered. Our people became positive due to staying in quarantine facilities in various countries. So these are the things. So just to say vaccination, we have to pay attention to and taking care of yourself. That's the message I want to give. Thank you.
Very, very challenging times for HR. Absolutely agreed. We are kind of running out of time. I would still like to ask Captain Chawla is here, and he is on the Human Factors Committee of Intertanko, a subject very much in vogue. As we know, OCIMF is also now pushing this agenda of human factors, Der Aaye Durust Aaye. But a bit of a provocative or a challenging question, even to others. Sir, it is one thing to keep talking about seafarers' competence. It is completely another when we look at these human factor considerations, which are now being pushed. The company's role in making the environment conducive to get the optimum performance out of this very skilled, experienced, and a competent certified seafarer. So is this since Captain Chawla is there on this Human Factors Committee, we would request him to please bring us updated with the realities of our industry, sir.
Okay, thanks. I'll try to do what I can. So see, this OCIMF can be looked upon, I would say, as a benevolent regulator. They don't wait for IMO to make regulations. They keep pushing the boundaries. So with the SIRE program that started, whatever, 1995 or something, the feeling in the tanker industry was that now we have reached the maximum benefit that we could do with the VIQ questionnaire, because the world average was something like 2.3 deficiencies per inspection. So also there was this feeling amongst these in those meetings also about a lot of, I would say, gaming of the system. Gaming of the system means it's almost like parrot-like, everybody is giving the same answers, and the real intent behind some of those questions was not being done. So they formed a new group which was told to do something completely different, think out of the present scenario, and that's how SIRE 2.0 came. The understanding is very much there with IMO and OCIMF or BIMCO, Intertanko, right ships, whatever, all these bodies, because they get the viewpoints of many people, from the large companies to the very small companies. So everybody is aware of it. What really happens in the human factor, or why does a human being fail? It's the ecosystem, right? It's not just the human being. He is failing in a set of circumstances that are put around with him. So as an example, if you take a navigation incident, most of which happen with pilots on board today than in the open sea, there could be tugs that are underpowered. There could be delays when the tug arrives, in the passage from the breakwater to the berth, let us say. So there will be a failure, and pretty often people at most levels in organizations tend to blame the individual. You even before an investigation is done, and the levels of the higher the level, the more aware that they are from day-to-day reality, the more chances are that they will first kind of say, who's the master on the ship? What's his experience? But as every good accident investigator will tell you, that you can't make a judgment on the individual till you have done a thorough investigation. And it could very much be that the set of circumstances around that person were such that he was set up for failure rather than being set up for success. So this understanding is very much there and I would say in the paragraph from the OCIMF human factors paper that came out, it's very much there. Within that paper, there is also a reference to one somewhere else where you have this safety 1.0 and safety 2.0. And that table actually clearly says that the intention in safety 2.0 is to move away from blaming the individual to investigating the overall ecosystem. I also happen to be participating in a group which is looking at incident investigation methodologies in OCIMF Intertanko joint group. And even in our terms of reference, we have captured that we want to try and bring guidance to the industry, which will say that when you have an accident, do not stop at why we typically tend to stop as the human being failed. And we're trying to change that mindset in the new guidance to say, that's the place where you start your investigation into human factors. That's when you try to say, why did this perfectly capable, great record for 20 years, well-trained individual, very sane individual, liked by his children and even by his wife, and yet he went wrong. So what's the system around it? So the industry is moving towards having a better understanding of the ecosystem around the individual who failed. The knee-jerk reaction from, let's say, people, I like to describe that for a CEO, his company is like a beautiful painting. It's a Monet, it's a Van Gogh, it's a beautiful painting. But the reality of any organization is more like a game of whack-a-mole. You must have seen this game with, if not your kids, at least with your grandkids. You have this thing which keeps popping up from different places, and the little child sits with a hammer and keeps hitting it. So all organizations are like a whack-a-mole game, right? So you will be having a 99.9% of the organization running beautifully, but somewhere on one ship, one oiler, one AB, one third officer, one captain, whatever, is doing something which is difficult to explain from a rational viewpoint. One of the things that OCIMF and the oil majors have gone away from, even though it still exists, the crew matrix, right? The focus on that very much is there, but there is a much better understanding on it now, that it's not just the experience or age of the individual, there are other factors to it. And if you look at all the major accidents of the world that all of us as teachers are teaching, the Herald of Free Enterprise and the Briar and take all of them, were they with junior people or were they with very senior masters? I did this research 15-20 years ago for Intertanko at one time and in the Hong Kong subcommittee. And pretty much if you look at the experience level of all of those big accidents, they were very, very senior masters from the first world, in terms of, there is this wrong notion that still exists in the world about third world country training standards and first world training standards. And if you look at that, they were first world people with the best of training in the best of the companies. I mean, look, everybody had to stop drinking on a tanker because of the Exxon Valdez, right? So that was not a junior master, that was not something. So to cut it short, I would say that the human factor is being understood better. If you remember, the word accident, I think if you do the research, it probably started only 40 or 50 years ago. If you take safety literature going back 75 or 100 years from the mining industry, automobile industry, etc., there was always accidents were also put together as chance. That's where the expression which is commonly used, shit happens, that came around because people had that acceptance that human beings can fail, will fail. Somewhere down in safety management literature, you will find that we have these experts who say all accidents can be prevented. Perfectly logical thing to say, because your due diligence of any company should be trying to always remain at zero accidents. But when you say that no human being is allowed to fail or can fail, that's not going to happen. The systems around that human being need to be designed in such a way, starting with the design of the ship, right? Come on, all of us know what kind of crappy ships are still coming out of the shipyards, right? I mean, today morning I was looking at a ship's photograph, a 9-year-old vessel where the fire line is completely rotten. 9-year-old vessel, right? If you remember your days, I mean, somewhere around every 5 years or 10 years, we used to turn that fire line around, right? Again, a practice that possibly is dying now. And then if you say that, okay, let's say this failure had happened after a fire was actually happening, right? What would be the reaction of every person in that company would be, right? Or by the regulator. So a human being, so in this case, I mean, this is during a normal test that it failed. But if you look at it, the human being is not the issue here. Or you could say, the guy who designed it and the guy who ordered the pipe or what schedule pipe, etc., etc. So my short answer after the very long monologue would be that we are understanding the human factor better as an industry. There is a lot more research going on to design systems in a way that they allow for human failure. I mean, look at the space station, right? We manage with remote control to dock two things with probably 5 centimeters clearance on either side, and this module docks, without fail every time, without any people dying or being affected. And so let's compare that with our industry. How many more things do we have room for improvement in terms of design? And look at our fire flaps, right? We still design them with little 2mm wires, right? Not a pneumatic system, not a hydraulic system. And because the regulatory world has not changed, we continue to do those things. So going forward, the industry will be looking at all of this in a more comprehensive way. And so regulatory world will change to have better standards for design, etc., materials design, all that, while we will still need to take into consideration that as long as we have human beings on board, we will have failures. We are working very hard to get rid of the human beings. The Japanese ship has just done 135-mile voyage, right? So we're getting there. So either we will take away the errors of the human being or we'll get away from the human beings. So,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Bilkul paisa vasool. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Like we said, these VIQs and TMSAs and all of them, they are really making IMO respond. If you see the HTW8 meeting, which just finished yesterday, day before, this was a point in the agenda that how can we consider human element when we design new IMO regulations? Will this regulation put more administrative burden on the seafarer? So this is where the regulator, like you said, yes, regulations is coming around and things are happening. Thank you very much.
Suresh, when we were sailing, we had 2,600 pages of regulation. Now we have 6,893 pages of regulation that every master and chief engineer is supposed to know them by heart. So just not humanly possible. But we as an industry, we as a regulatory body representatives, we are doing that to the seafarer. We are burdening him with so much of administrative burden. Okay, let's take, sorry for going longer on it, 1 second, because I'm very passionate about this. This whole thing about oil record books, right? Is it really difficult for engineers to design a system which automatically records when that valve opened, when it closed, and what was the GPS position at that time? It's a piece of cake to actually design it, right? So why are we continuing with these garbage books and oil record books and God knows all the 25 logbooks that we have, rather than designing these things away from the seafarer and let him concentrate on navigation and safe carriage of cargo, which is the purpose.
Super, super. Thank you. Sir, we have run out of time, and I am sure Dr. Balaji and Yogyata are monitoring the chat box, and there are questions for you coming more. So over to you, Yogyata, Dr. Balaji.
Right. Let me just add Dr. Balaji to the spotlight so that in case he has any questions as assimilator, he can take it. And Dr. Balaji, should I just read out the questions from the audience, if that's okay?
Yeah, that would be fine. That would
Okay,
be
okay, great. So let me just start. So there were some questions that only I have received. So let me read them out loud first. So I think this question is for Captain Chawla. So where do you see Indian seafarers, especially officers, adapting themselves to the rapid changes happening to technology? Do they upgrade themselves or need to be pushed to upgrade? I think some elements are covered, but yeah.
I think it's Newton's law, right? I mean, we all need to be pushed a little bit because otherwise we are in a state of inertia, but that's the responsibility of the company to provide the right amount of training. And the counter responsibility of the seafarer is to turn up in that classroom with his mind open to learn. And if both are doing their job well, we will absorb and we will get better.
Right. There's another question on HR aspect. The general perception is that Indian ratings are employed mainly to serve on ships manned by Indian officers rather than officers of other nationalities. So is this perception correct, firstly? And if so, does anything need to be done to make Indian ratings more employable with international and non-Indian officers? So it's open to the panel. Anyone can take up if they want to answer, please.
May I, Yogyata?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, traditionally, what used to happen is that Indian ratings used to be employed on ships where there were Indian officers. That was traditionally. But over the years, there has been change. But at the same time, the Indian ratings did not have that much of experience dealing with East European officers or European officers, and even vice versa. So it's not just one way, it is vice versa. But with the pandemic coming in and with the charter flights going out and all that, Indian ratings were put with other nationalities, mixed nationalities, and slowly they are adapting to that change and vice versa. So yeah, it is working. Yes, slightly more enhanced communication skills because what happens on full Indian manned ships, it's okay if a person is not that fluent in English, he's still able to communicate and people understand. But that is the only thing. Otherwise, yeah, things are getting better and the ratings are actually now mixing with other nationalities.
Right. Thank you. Next question is by Captain Prabhat Nigam. Sir, if you want to unmute yourself, let us know, but I'll just read out your question for you. I think his experience is in online mode of assessment, the pre-C students are scoring 90% marks and the same cadet fails to get even 50% marks when he is assessed in offline mode. So does that imply that online mode of training could be a failure?
Well, from an MTI perspective, if I have to answer, I will prefer the offline mode, and that is the, I'll say, feedback from the industry also. As I suggested that there is a pre-pandemic selection and there's a pandemic batch. So that itself gives us a very clear distinction that the training has to happen in offline mode. People may have various other thoughts, but in general, the perception from the MTI perspective, the faculties and the feedback which we are getting from the shipping companies says that they will prefer the offline mode. And to some extent, what Captain Nigam is saying is also true. This is from the MTI side. Shipping company, anybody, sir?
Can I say something? Am I audible?
Yogyata?
Yeah.
Yogita, am I audible?
Yes. Is it Captain Nigam? Yeah, you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, my congratulations to IMRC. Wonderful platform, very high level thoughts and discussions. Coming back to this question which I had put, Captain Apankar, if you remember, or rather most of us had been deliberating on this, that even before pandemic, we started about digitalizing the training. And so many webinars or so many conferences we did, and we said the future is blended training, offline and online. But now, after 2 years, we are saying, no, online training is no good. In one of the conferences, which was international, where somebody had said, Denmark tried it, but now they have removed it. No online training, only offline training. I'm talking about pre-C per se. Post-C, maybe to some extent it is successful. Then what is the solution? We are living in this pandemic. We do not know when we'll be virus-free or corona-free. This wave can keep on coming. That doesn't mean that we can stop training our people, or by training, again, I'm referring only to pre-C training, and stop sending new cadets and boys on the ship. So what is the solution? I have something in mind, but I would like to ask the panelists here, what is the solution?
Yogita, I would like to answer.
Yeah, please, sir. Please.
But first, I want to go back to your first question about the chief course. I totally agree with what Sankalp said. I mean, traditionally, what was being done is one thing. Recently, a spur of vessels had been taken over by Indians. And some of the vessels, you are taking, sending ratings where maybe the officers are from outside or there is a mixed rating. I do remember many years back, there used to be a kind of a questions coming to us in our offices in late 90s. Okay, we are getting a Filipino crew, so please note, these are the food items for them. And I'm glad to say, I am getting these questions from our Ukrainian and other masters. I have an Indian crew. Can you send me some Indian things? So Indians are now mixing up. Though we did a gap analysis. There's a question of English language barrier are there. So we are sending like training cooks in all the ships. I'm also grooming them for Indian food, and we are actually looking after our Indian eating. So they are now getting mixed up. They are going in a many big numbers all over. So that was the first thing. Second thing, Captain Nigam sir, I agree actually with Captain Nigam's question. We saw it, we felt it too. We did not have much choice in 2020. I'll be very open. We actually did not have any choice. We had the open trainee berths on the ship and no trainees. As a company, what will you do? Training institutes, Nigam sir is there, Pankar sir is here. Of course, I saw Mr. Vakil, HIMT, very supportive to us on the LNG training. These people are telling us the cadets are here, but no actual on the side training.
Hands-on, yeah.
There's nothing. So what will you do? So we waited for a few months, but it didn't work out. So we had to send some people. In between, luckily, we saw there was an opening in the middle of 21. Few months were actually opened by DG Shipping in many institutes. Yogita, most of the companies, immediately those cadets who were ready to go on the ship as per DG circular, most of the companies told them go back to the training institute, maybe for 3 weeks, minimum 3 weeks, if I remember, month. And they were given all this hard-on training, get up in the morning, 5 o'clock. And these are the things which are not a textbook training. We call it OJT, on-job training. That's what it is. So, Captain Nigam, I wanted to put the company perspective. We had no choice in 2020, nothing. 21, we had choice and we are acting on it. Hopefully, very soon, I think COVID is going to go. Or if it's going to stay,
inshallah, it should go. I'm perfectly in favor of that COVID should go. But what if it doesn't? Do we have a contingency plan?
Yeah, if I may over here, Captain Nigam, I'll tell you, we have statistics of the boys that we took who, or the cadets, boys, girls that we took who actually were not able to attend pre-C training. institute, attend the institute practically for the pre-C training. And if you remember, that DG circular had come out that they can go complete the C service and then come back and complete whatever is required. In doing that, we realized we maintain these statistics a year-on-year basis as to how many cadets choose to go out to sea, but once they join the ship, they feel that sailing is not a career for them. And it was alarmingly high on the batch that we sent of people who had not attended the institute at all. So going ahead in the future, something like pre-C training, like what we had mentioned before, the actual feel of, some kind of routine of a shipboard routine, staying away from the family, getting used to that kind of process will be a reality. It will be a requirement. Whereas certain courses which actually do not warrant physical presence will continue online, because you have now very smart learning management systems, which a lot of institutes have invested in. So going ahead, I think it will be a hybrid model. But when it comes to pre-C, I'm sure whether it be companies or even the institutes will voice the same concern, that if you do not give that atmosphere of actually being something like a ship, it will be very difficult going ahead.
Yeah. So it's something like a ship will be on a simulator?
No. What I mean
No.
what I mean is living like on a ship. When you're in an institute, you have a routine. You get up in the morning, you go do your march past, do your PT, then your classes start at 9 o'clock. You are away from the family for a certain period of time, so that you get used to that kind of, that kind of life. That's what I'm.
That is what the drill which we have also gone through, and we would like the cadets also to go through, because we realize that once they have that mental setup to join a ship with this kind of routines in which they have been drilled, they will be successful. But now we are not getting it. We are not. It is not possible today.
No,
Captain Chawla wants to say something.
Yeah.
I just want to say that, remember, we guys didn't have, I think in SCI, mine was probably the first, the second batch of pre-C. People before us did go out to sea without a pre-C of the modern kind. So I think a simple solution could be that we get them to do an extra 4 months of sea time, 6 months of sea time, and that on the job training would be taken care of it. Nobody can help the COVID situation, right? And maybe it will disappear in end of 2022 or maybe 2023. But that regulatory framework can be changed. If you remember, we went from 36 months to this present 12 months because of a period of very grave shortage in our industry. And hence IMO was, pushed into by ship owners to reduce the sea time. And even today, once the COVID goes away, there are many papers that are still pending from the previous HTW meetings where countries were saying to reduce it to 9 months instead of 12 months.
Yes.
So that cycle will come back. But in the meantime, we have to manage with the way things are. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I think we may come to some conclusion soon. And Yogita, with your permission, I would like to announce that this topic is being further deliberated and continued on 23rd Feb on MTG. So it's totally what we are going to discuss on 23rd Feb. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Captain. Yeah, Captain Bilal.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, I just wanted to say what Captain Chawla just said, that in our time, there was no pre-C anyway, so before our time, but pre-C is something of modern times. It can always be replaced by people going on the ship. And I think we all have enough confidence in the level of education that our boys have now. It will not be difficult for them to go on the ship. As long as they don't trip and fall and get themselves injured, they will learn probably much quicker than they would have learned in the institute. I think we need to have that confidence. We need to have that balance where if COVID continues and we cannot have a full-time course, they should be allowed to go and do extra. I think in my mind, it was 6 months and Captain Chawla says 4 months. Yeah, 6 months. And additional sea time should do the trick. I just wanted to highlight another one. And sometimes when times are difficult, we probably need to address those. And this is for Captain Apankar, who was saying that companies are not choosing the boys who are COVID cadets, right? Or that is really I think unfair to the boys. It is none of their problems. It was not them. And I think some kind of I don't say they need empathy. It is their right to be selected before the other boys are selected if they are considered senior. And I think probably from the DG, probably from the industry as a whole, this discussion should take place publicly, that you don't ignore the boys who, not for their fault, they got into this this catch. No, I think it should be open discussion, and probably the companies that are doing this should be discouraged to not to choose the boys who have already done this but could not do it physically. It is, to me, very important. A lot of boys they want to go to sea not because yesterday they decided, but many of them have been thinking about it from when they were young. I remember when I was very young, I decided that one day I will go to sea. It takes a long mindset, and in a world where today we are having a lot of challenge attracting talent for the seafaring, and here there are boys who have already in the system and we are ignoring them. Not really nice. I think this should not be. Probably I would strongly suggest an industry discussion publicly that this should not continue. They should be the one, and as the what you call the serial number seniority, they should be taken up. So I think that probably would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Right. So I hope I have covered all questions from the chat box. If there are anything else, please feel free to raise your hand or post it on the chat box. And if in the meantime, yeah, Captain Bilal.
Yeah. Thanks, Yagota. I think one thing probably I thought before we close this, I need to say, with regard to modern engines and the additional training requirements and the amount of money that Captain Chawla and we all are spending is horrendous amount. And why? Because the companies that makes the engines is, I don't know whether it is part of their policy to make profit, because the training that is needed is not where it should be, or it's not available when it is needed. There is, my view, and I have been advocating this in other places as well, there should be industry push for engine makers like MAN or Alfa Laval, who make scrubbers and ballast water treatment systems, that the proper training should not be in Copenhagen, should not be in Amsterdam. It should be in India, it should be in the Philippines, it should be where the seafarers are. And it should not be like a third-rate training, it should be exactly same training that they do in Prime Serve or their own places. It is going to be more and more important as this kind of ships and this kind of engines will take over more than 50, 60, 70% of the total tonnage. Then what do we do? Now the number of ships are very small and the owners are still taking money from their pocket. But if we talk of thousands of seafarers that need to be trained on this new technology that is coming with the new engines, we probably need a joint industry effort. And I'm quite sure India is probably the leading country that can actually raise this issue and push it. The MAN or Alfa Laval or these people will not listen to us. I'm sure there are, I mean, we use their engines, but they will not take it up unless there is a pressure on them that you need to have your training systems available where the officers are coming from, not that we have to go to your place. So I think I just want to bring it up, which probably has not been discussed earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So if it's okay, I would like to hand it over to Dr. Balaji for his final comments and assimilation. Dr. Balaji, over to you, please.
Yeah, I think much has been said. I don't have really much to add in the value part of it, but I will kind of sum up with two questions from my side. There's been a lot of talk on training need analysis, gap analysis, soft skills. There's also human factors. All of these have been discussed. I would like to pose one question that the principals, do they have any mechanism for assessing the training outcomes, especially the the so-called soft skills. Other than that, the run-of-the-mill STCW certification courses, this is one. The second one is that we touched upon some digitalization issues and modernization, etc. There were mention about sea lane management and also something about digital loyal record book was proposed also. So on this, I'm just curious to know from the industry principals whether anybody has started work on digital bits. I think the rest of it, I think it's been well assimilated. I wouldn't like to stretch it further. If somebody can just react to this, that would be good. Thank you.
Captain Pradeep, please.
Yeah, Captain Chawla, would you like to address this?
Yeah, on the digital record book, I can just report with my hat as chairman of Global Met that we do have a record book. It is in digital format. It is an Indian company out of Delhi that has made it. It is being sold worldwide, and they are getting a lot of inquiries now with respect to being completely digital with no printing out. Even the flag state can look into the same software with a username password, and it is pretty much available. And there are, I think right now, last week I saw some company out of Chile asking them for the same thing. So it is pretty much available. And I've now forgot your first question, though I knew the answer to that one also. So let someone else answer it.
Yeah, I had posed on, is there a mechanism to assess the training outcomes?
Yes, I can get from Intertanko. We have published a book called Behavioral Competency Assessment Guidelines. And it is now becoming a part of OCIMF SIRE checklist and TMSA element 14, human element 14, which is not yet done, but it's on a trial basis now for another year. And there is an IMO model course 1.30 called the Assessors Course. The requirements are that people who are doing the assessment should have the knowledge not only in the nautical or engineering side, but they must also be trained on how to do assessments. And that course, which is the IMO model course 1.30, was actually written by Global Met. And the main author, in fact, of that is Captain Vinayak Mola, who works for Anglo-Western in Delhi, and Captain Debu. So pretty much, and I would urge as Global Met that please let a lot of other companies start doing this training for 1.30, because post-COVID, every tanker owner will be looking for this training. So, I mean, we do it mainly for our in-house people as Anglo-Western Training Center, but there is an opportunity here for all the MTIs to get on board with the 1.30 course. And since you have the main author sitting in Delhi, pick up the phone and talk to Vinayak, and he'll give you a special session just for the Indian industry to get on board with that. Thank you.
Right. Captain Shukla.
Yeah, coming back to digital record books, yes, Captain Chawla, you're right. There are in fact quite a few companies now that are having this digital logbook being sold. There's one Ingenium here in Mumbai. And we, of course, as BSM, we have our in-house software company that is developed. And in fact, we are already using digital record books on quite a few of our ships. So that's already been done. And the advantage of the digital record books is that it clearly tells you, it doesn't let you enter a value if there is a mistake over there. It has that kind of intelligence that is built in. And going ahead, what Pradeep sir had said is they're even looking at with sensors and all to actually have an automated function that's work in progress. There are European companies that are working on it, that that actual physical entering of data will not be required. Through sensors, the data would directly come into the system. That is work in progress. It is currently being carried out in Europe. There's research going on in Europe regarding that.
Right. Thank you. Right, Dr. Balaji, if you have any other final points for assimilation, or that's what?
No, I wouldn't like to prolong it. I think much has been said. I stand corrected on only one thing, that I made a leading question on this digital ORB. My question was actually on digital winning, but that is okay. It's just in, yeah, that's it.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Balaji. Right. So if there are no further questions, Dr. Bhardwaj, is it okay if you would like to close this session and just come to the final part of IMRC, if with your permission?
Of course. Please, please, please. This
Right.
is closed. All yours.
Sure, sure. No, of course. First, I would just like to not rush, but I would like to thank the moderator and assemblator and this esteemed panel that we have here for such a wonderful and constructive discussion. And we as IMRC are very committed to taking all of these points and inputs that have come in forward. So thank you, panelists, and thank you, Dr. Bhardwaj, as the moderator. Thank you so much. So if we are just coming to a close of this session here today. And I would just like to take 5 minutes of your time to close IMRC 2022. Of course, it's not the closing of IMRC 2022, but only the closing of this online symposium that we have had this week. We have a lot of work to do as we go ahead. And I would like Dr. Bhardwaj to just share the spotlight with me because, I was also request Dr. Poonam and I think Mr. Pawan Kapoor is also there. If they have any final comments, please feel free to pitch in. But let me start by just saying that, as I was saying, this is only the end to IMRC 2022 online symposium that we had this week with 7 various sessions. It's not an end to IMRC 2022 because we have a lot of work to do as we go ahead. We have had so many amazing sessions, and it is now our work as a team to make sure that we collect all of them and do the required work that is needed and then present them to the industry in the way that can be actually implemented or researched ahead or as solutions or as hurdles to look out for. So if some of you have attended the inauguration on day 1, which was on Monday this week, you must have seen this chart where we have a 5-step IMRC 2022. And right now, this was just step 3. So step 4, as I was saying, we are going to be collecting all outcomes. We may need to go back to some of the panelists because they have cited so many case studies, other literature works that has been done in the past, also some solutions that they may have implemented in a certain area or a region or a time, which could be used, improvised and implemented in the future in a different kind of scenario. So those are the kind of things that we would need to go back to our panelists to, and then make sure that we are doing justice to all of these points that have come in. We are going to be publishing white papers based off on each of these sessions, and then they will be a part of our upcoming IGMRD, which is the Maritime Journal, in its next issue in April. So we have a lot of work ahead and just about 2 months to finish all of it. And so we are going to get right to it. In the meanwhile, of course, we have shared this before. If any of our audience or even panelists or anybody has inputs or questions which they think can enrich any of these discussions that has happened in the last 4 days, please feel free to write to us. All of these sessions are available on our website if you want to watch them on demand. So I also wanted to make another announcement here. As we are going to be working on this project further, we would like to invite actually research scholars, experts, students who think they may like to contribute by way of project or their thesis or any other kind of contributions that they think that they can make to a certain problem statement of IMRC 2022. So do write to us if you would like to be a part of this project that we are going to undertake, and we are hoping that we can work with the industry together, which will be great to look forward to. So in closing, I just want to actually offer my thanks. Of course, this is a huge teamwork, and we have had a very good team ever since the inception of IMRC 2020. We had so many patrons and the full committee. So I would just like to offer my thanks, starting with the Hindustan Institute of Maritime Training and Mr. Sanjeev Vakil, who's been part of this since inception. Also to our patrons, Directorate General of Shipping, Mumbai Port Trust, Indian Maritime University, FOSMA, MASA, Indian Register of Shipping, and NUSI, that is National Union of Seafarers. Thank you everyone for being a part and advising us along this journey. And of course, we have had a great panel for each of these sessions. So big thank you to all of our panelists. And you have met our subcommittee as moderators and assemblators in the last 4 days. So I'll try to remember as many names as I can. So of course, Mr. Jagmeet Makkar, Dr. Bhavnani were there for our commerce and economy session, and then Captain Kishore and Mr. Ullas Kalgadki for technological advancements. And then we had our session on health, safety, environment, which we have Mr. Pawan Kapoor and Dr. Ananta Subramaniam. Then ports and logistics, we had Captain Kapil Dev Behel, Mr. Puneet Oza and Chittadash for the session today. And of course, Dr. Bharadwaj and Dr. Balaji are here here for this last session. They have been part of our committee. They have helped us in devising these problem statements and really formulating them so that they actually are the pulse of the situation and they can be worked on ahead. So thank you everyone so much. Of course, we have also received 1 or 2 small donations from some audience. Mr. Anil, I don't know the last name, but thank you so much for your trust. And we are hoping that we can take this work forward with all of your support and contributions in this. So with this, as the convener, thank you everyone so much. I would just like to say, if Dr. Bharadwaj or anyone else has any final comments, please feel free to come in. I will just open the panel so that you can unmute yourselves. Right. If there's anything, please feel free. Otherwise, this is the closing.
Yeah, Yogita, I think for me, I put a small comment on the chat.
Right.
I'd like to see that probably IMEC as an organization can work with IMRC in future, because as I say, India has a lion's share of guiding the industry, not just today, but for tomorrow as well. And probably I will work on see how we can, at least on some areas, we could work together and share our knowledge. Yeah.
Certainly, so that will be amazing. That absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Right. Mr. Sanjeev Vakil, sir, do you have anything you want to add here? I can see you there. That's why.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it was an excellent session. The last 4 days certainly was good. And it's been great that to be a part of IMRC right from inception, and 10 years is not the only thing. I think it should go for 20 years. Certainly we'll be partnering with you as it's been the case, and excellent. I think could not have happened, and certainly being online. I did attend the last time also, but this time I could see the panel what you have selected, and globally I think we have got, which would not have happened. I think COVID has also been a blessing to see that we all have been meeting from different parts of the world, and I think it should continue in the future also. Even we have physical, but we certainly like to see a blended mode or hybrid mode, which otherwise would not have been possible. I think in the last time also, we did have a good panel, but then this time the panelists and were excellent. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to once again thank Captain Bilal, Captain Chawla, and Captain Sankalp, and Captain Basin, and Captain Apankar for this wonderful session. And thank you, Yogita, for all this 3 days wonderful hard work. We have now, our work starts actually. So thank you.
Okay.
Agreed, sir. Right. We do have some minutes. If anybody wants to network, stay back. I'll stop the live streaming.